What's in a name, as they say? I met today's guest through Dreamers and Doers, a magical networking group, which I must say truly does live up to his name. You will always find members thinking of big, audacious ideas and making them actually happen. So that's the doing part of it. I am so excited to dive into the ROI of having an executive brand, something I have been working really hard to build this year, and so much more with our guest, Lexie Smith.
I'm so excited to be here.
So excited. Welcome to Manage Chaos Podcast, where we give you the startup business rundown in less time than it takes for you to get to work. I'm Katrina Purcell. Today, I am joined by the incredible Lexie Smith, a PR strategist, thought leadership expert, and three-time entrepreneur with a career spanning agency leadership, in-house PR, and executive roles. As CEO of Growth Mode, she leads the agency's evolution from top-tier PR and communications firm to premier thought leadership agency, helping leaders establish and amplify their voices to drive business growth. Lexie, I am so excited to dive into this because I have been working on my executive presence on LinkedIn this year. Where do you even start when you start to think about sort of your executive presence, becoming a thought leader? Like, what's the first step?
Great question, big question. Also, kudos to you. Having a podcast is a great, big checkbox on that. So you're far
A
ahead of
few.
the curve.
Okay.
My answer is going to sound really foundational, but it is foundational, and that's having a plan. So many people just dive in. They don't really take a minute to sit down, clarify, why am I doing this? What's the why behind building a personal brand? Is this to progress my career? Is this to drive leads from my business? Getting clear on that why and getting aligned will be able to help you more succinctly map out what your first step should be, because your first step might not be the same as Susie's over there.
That is perfect. I think a lot of times we take a plan that someone else has and we think we're just going to implement it for ourselves without actually stepping back and thinking, were their goals the same as ours?
Exactly. Exactly.
Have you ever struggled with feeling a little too self focused on building the brand? And how did you reframe that?
My God. So, quick backstory, because you mentioned three-time business owner. My first business was in the coaching space, the PR bar. I launched it back in 2019, and I was so self-conscious of wanting to have a personal brand, or so against it, that I built this entire brand to hide behind. Funny thing is, when you're in a service-based business, especially like coaching, turns out people want to know you. So I made a big mountain for myself to climb, and I had to kind of backflip into building my personal brand. So it's obviously been some time since that, and there's kind of two things that have worked for me from a reframe standpoint. Number one is very logical, so I can't fight it. People buy from people, right? Stories, connection, they're facts. That part my brain can't dispute. Then you bring in the layer of, well, if I really believe in what I'm offering or what I'm building, then it is a service for me to let people know about it. It's a service for me to get this out into the world. And if the way I do that is through connecting with people, then that's my personal brand, right? So it's like part logic, part really thinking of it as an opportunity for impact.
Both aspects of that, the doing it in service of others or doing it to help others, I think speaks so highly to me as well. So I can't hide behind the brand because I named my company my name, which was it was a part lazy. I couldn't come up with a creative name at the time and I wanted to get it out there, but also a way to sort of say, well, this is me. I'm the service you're getting. In doing that, I had to sort of start to take in feedback from mentors, right? From the audience who's shaping the brand, right? How do you start to balance your instinct and your own personal brand with feedback from others once you've put it out into the world to make it sure it still feels authentic to you?
God, I mean, this is such a hard question of life in general, and it could cross
It
over into
really is,
parenting
yeah.
advice. There's so many layers here. I think part one is you have to have the capacity to be really, really self-aware. So get to know your strengths. What are your points that you're really confident in? What do you feel strongly about? Honestly, journal it out. If you've never really done that before, write it to paper. And with that, also know where you're not the strongest. Know where other people might know more than you and be open to that. There's no exact formula here. You do want to feel aligned when it's your brand, and you do want to try to connect your intuition. but there's great value in getting out of your own way and listening to those, especially in the areas where you're not the strongest. It's again, not an exact silent science, but a little barometer there.
Right. And sort of, I guess, making sure that you have the right, my friend always calls it her board of directors, but making sure that you have the right people who are giving the advice, people who maybe have walked the path you're
100%.
walking or who have achieved things you're trying to achieve because they might have a little bit more insider information.
100% who you surround yourself with, and not only understanding what you are confident in yourself, but developing confidence and where you're going to listen to people, who you're going to listen to for what, right? And knowing that you can, what's the classic saying? There are too many cooks in the kitchen.
Uh-huh.
Like everyone's going to have an opinion, right?
Yes.
So selective hearing is actually very, very important when it comes to this.
I'll let my husband know that one. What are some common pitfalls that leaders should avoid when putting themselves out there? I know for me, what kept me from posting more on LinkedIn was actually just fear of sort of almost the unknown, but just putting something out there and having people not like it or putting something out there and feeling like I had to defend it. Some people will say, well, actually, that could be good because that will drive up interest, right? Because you're creating controversy. I try not to be controversial. It's not my jam. But what are things to sort of avoid when you're putting yourself out there?
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to part one. Knowing what your brand stands for is really important here to help you navigate all the pitfalls that could come about. So if you haven't done that, if you haven't set even like a baseline brand strategy for yourself or pillars to go by or, alignments to live by, do that because it's going to help you navigate the do's and don'ts so much easier. What I'd also say is something to avoid, and it's easier said than done, is most of what comes up is mindset related, right? Fear of putting yourself out there, fear of ruffling feathers, analysis paralysis, getting too hung up. I spent 30 minutes writing this really amazing post, and then since we're talking about LinkedIn, because you were saying you were talking about LinkedIn, putting it out there and then it's crickets. There's so many hurdles that can come up that can talk us out of doing the thing, right?
Mhm.
So when you have that foundational strategy to lean back on, it gives you a little bit of armor on the days where it's a little harder. And I'd say getting clear on your standpoint or your viewpoint on more politically charged or just charged topics that relate to you is important. So you understand when you want to talk and when you don't. And, the bigger you grow, the more you're going to have people throwing their hats in the rings, but as long as you are clear on, your North Star and where you sit, that's what matters. So I know it sounds so basic, but doing that foundational work ahead of time is going to be so, so helpful when those unknown or challenging points come up in your journey.
To be fair, this has come up on multiple episodes where we talk about either avoiding pitfalls or avoiding rework. It's really actually spending time in the beginning to sit down and do what I think a lot of people say, I'll get to that at some point. But in reality, sitting down, coming up with your brand strategy, coming up with those pillars, coming up with your vision, your mission, like what are those guiding North Stars is so important to so many keys of your business as it grows because you can come back to that foundation and say, well, this is what we decided before we got into a situation where we kind of were tested.
Yeah, and that can evolve, right? Like we're humans. We're going to evolve. In fact, highly suggest you check in, whether it be once a quarter, every 6 months, at that baseline strategy. Are there tweaks you want to make? But it gives you something to refer to when you're already navigating something that's so hard. That's your own brand, right? We're talking about your personal brand. And that is a whole nother layer than promoting a different brand or a product brand. This is you. And it's hard. A lot comes up. So cosign basically what you said.
It definitely, a lot does come up, but when you start to think about business expenses, right, and thinking through what the actual ROI is for an executive brand, right? So let's do the leader first, the ROI for the leader, and then think about it from a business perspective. So as the leader, what is my ROI on building my brand?
I'll try not to get too nerdy on you, but as someone who
I love
owns
nerdy.
owns a personal brand firm, obviously this is something, and I have, 50 million tabs open on my desk at any one point in time.
Same.
I want to read you 2 stats. I'll keep them quick, and then I'll add a little bit of a personal layer to it too. So here's a stat, guys, that you can't fight me on because it's a stat. Founders and leaders with a strong personal brand help companies attract top talent 2 times faster and close deals 33% faster. Okay. Here's one for you. One more. Thought leadership content from executives drives 60% more qualified leads compared to branded marketing alone. So, I mean, go to Google, go to ChatGPT. There are stats for days that you can reference. If you're open to it, I have a more like little personal case study I thought would be fun to
Yeah,
share.
of course.
I can't like name names always in my business. So I'm going to give you the profile of the client high level. We represent a CEO of a service-based business in New York near you. They have about 100 employees, and there are 3 different really tactics that he pulls on his personal brand strategy. And the ROI is a little bit different for each. Tactic 1, LinkedIn. LinkedIn for him does or has been really, really powerful in inviting him to opportunities to speak on stages, on podcasts, on industry panels. Okay. So it's been a door opener for him, which has been great. Podcasts has been a huge, huge part of his strategy. Those have been the most direct revenue driving. We can count and point back specific shows to specific clients. The D2C pod by the HubSpot network got them a client contract off of that episode. Then he does bylines, so where he writes for different things in that nature, and that ROI, once again, is a little bit different. What's proved really helpful for him there is he has, he's been acquired, so there's like a holding company above him. His investors eat it up. So it's been really, really great to share for investor relations, but I like this example because it shows you that ROI, it comes in different forms and at different like.
It does. And so for me, when we started the podcast originally, it was sort of a passion project, to be honest, right? It was a way for us to try to disseminate information to people to help them, information we felt like was hard to find, or maybe you wouldn't know the right thing to do when you're starting your business. And then as we've gotten more episodes, it now is something where when I'm pitching business, I can include a link to an episode that I think relates to the problem the client's having, and they can actually hear me talk about it. And so it has become a really, I would say it's probably increasing the close rate, right? Or even time
Mhm.
to close. It's decreasing the time to close because they're able to actually hear my thoughts without scheduling a meeting, right? We don't have to schedule the calendars around everything. And by the time we actually meet, it's more like, great, we're working together. How do we go about that?
Yep. People buy
Not
from
what we were
people.
thinking originally.
Yeah, and it's building your know, like, and trust factor before you've even gotten on the phone. So you're cutting down what could have been a 6-month back and forth process to, whatever, like a week, whatever it takes, right? So yeah, big fan of podcasts over here. We produce them as well.
Nice. It also, as I started to think about what you were saying, I mean, that's really been the ROI both for him as a person, but also for his business. When it's not as much of a service based business, is there as much triangulation for the business itself?
It can be different for sure. It depends what the business goals are. There's more layers involved. Maybe a founder needs to go and fundraise. Personal brand becomes huge in that aspect. There's a lot of brands out there. One, my friend was talking about Sarah Blakely the other day, and she's like, the only reason I buy Spanx is because of Sarah Blakely. So people are still connecting with people, and a brand can be successful without their leaders having a personal brand. I do want to say that. But if you have a leader or a founder or leaders that are willing to get involved, there's just so much that you can leverage for your brand.
Do you feel like the storytelling aspect of it is something that as a culture we're really crying for right now? We want to fight for the underdog founder. We want to support the person who invented the poppy soda, right? Because we like her. She's a mom. She has a challenge that we all have, right? And I think it makes it more relatable.
It
It's not
totally
some
does.
big corporation.
Do you ever watch the show Shark Tank?
Oh, I love Shark Tank.
I got my PR start with that show. That's a story for another time. We don't have time. But what I love about that show is it demonstrates sometimes you'll see the sharks fighting over the product. Often you'll see them investing in the entrepreneur, right? Investing in the person. And it just shows you here are people who are at the top of their game. Like, you can't get much bigger in business, and they're still choosing the people to invest in.
Right. I think that's the perfect way actually to end this episode. So thank you so much for joining us, Lexie. Mic drop. You can find Lexie on LinkedIn and on her website, Growth Mode On, which we will link in the show notes. Please subscribe to Manage Chaos Podcast on your preferred podcasting platform, and we will see you on the next episode.